It started with a smell, a damp, earthy scent like old potatoes forgotten in a cellar. For weeks, it had been seeping up from the basement, a place I avoided like the plague. It was Felix's domain, his workshop, his man cave, whatever you want to call it. But the smell was getting worse, and our 7-year-old Eliza had started complaining about monster breath coming from the vents. So armed with a bottle of bleach and a pair of rubber gloves, I descended into the underworld. The basement was exactly as I'd left it, a chaotic landscape of half-finished woodworking projects, dusty power tools, and stacks of old tech magazines. The smell was stronger here, thick and cloying. I traced it to the far wall, the one made of cinder blocks that separated our property from the Abernathys next door. Behind a towering metal shelving unit crammed with paint cans and rusty tools, I saw it. A section of the wall wasn't cinder block at all. It was drywall, poorly textured and painted a slightly different shade of gray. A dark, telltale line of mildew bloomed along its bottom edge. My heart started doing a weird, fluttery thing in my chest. This wasn't on the house plans. I'd seen them 100 times when we bought the place. Getting the shelving unit moved was a nightmare. It was heavy and the casters screeched in protest. But after 10 minutes of grunting and shoving, I had enough clearance. I ran my hand over the drywall. It felt hollow. I knocked. A dull, empty thud, not the solid thunk of cinder block. I pressed harder and my fingers found the edge of a seam. It wasn't just a patch, it was a door. A goddamn door, flush-mounted and cleverly hidden. There was no handle, just a small magnetic latch that popped open when I pressed the right spot. The smell that wafted out was 100 times worse. It was the smell of stale air, hot electronics, and something else, something faintly metallic and unsettling, like old blood. My hand was shaking as I fumbled for the light switch on my phone. The beam cut through the darkness and landed on a wall. But it wasn't a wall of concrete, it was a wall of faces, my face, Eliza's face. Hundreds of photographs were pinned to a massive corkboard arranged in a sprawling, obsessive collage. Us at the park, us sleeping, me in the shower, a blurry, long-lens shot taken through the frosted glass. Eliza playing in her room with her dolls. They were taken from angles that made my stomach churn, from high up, as if from a tree, or from low down through a gap in the fence. My breath hitched. My legs felt like they were about to give out. I leaned against the doorframe, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. The room was small, no bigger than a walk-in closet, and it was packed with equipment. There were 3 computer monitors humming softly on a makeshift desk, their screens displaying a grid of live video feeds. Our kitchen, the living room, Eliza's bedroom, my bedroom. The cameras were so well hidden, I'd never once noticed them. I felt a wave of nausea so intense I had to swallow hard to keep from vomiting. This was a violation on a level I couldn't comprehend. My husband, my Felix, the man who kissed me goodnight and read Eliza bedtime stories, he had built this shrine of surveillance. I must have been in there for an hour just staring, my mind a blank, roaring static. I didn't even hear him come down the stairs. The first I knew of his presence was his voice, calm and steady, right behind me. "Vera, I can explain." I screamed, a raw, ragged sound that tore from my throat. I spun around, grabbing a heavy wrench from his workbench, holding it out like a weapon. He didn't even flinch, he just stood there, his face a mask of weary resignation. "I know how this looks," he said, his voice maddeningly gentle, "but you have to believe me. This isn't for me, it's for you, for both of you." He stepped into the room, his presence filling the cramped space. He told me his story. About a month ago, he'd found a disposable camera in the bushes by our driveway. He got the film developed. It was full of pictures of me and Eliza, close-ups. He started noticing things, a car parked down the street for hours, a man at the grocery store who seemed to be following me. He said he went to the police and they told him they couldn't do anything without more proof. So he took matters into his own hands. He built this, a counter-surveillance hub. He was hunting a ghost, a predator who was stalking his family. He was using the monster's own methods against him. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to more than anything. But my eyes kept drifting back to the photos on the wall, the sheer volume of them, the intimacy. It felt personal, possessive. "Who?" I whispered, the wrench still held tight in my grip. "Who is it?" Felix's eyes flickered to one of the monitors. This one wasn't a video feed. It was a digital map of our neighborhood, a blueprint of the houses on our block. On it, 2 dots glowed. A blue one labeled Home Base was centered on our house, and a red one labeled Little Bird was blinking steadily. It was inside the outline of the house next door. "He has her," Felix said, his voice dropping to a low, intense whisper. He pointed a trembling finger at the screen. "That's Eliza's tracker. I sewed it into the lining of her backpack. The signal is coming from Abernathy's attic." My first coherent thought was a single screaming word: police. I fumbled for my phone, my thumb swiping frantically across the screen. Felix's hand shot out and clamped down on my wrist. Not hard, but with an unyielding pressure that was more terrifying than a blow. No, he said, his voice still low, but now with a sharp, dangerous edge. Absolutely not, think Vera, think. Let go of me. I tried to yank my arm away, but his grip was like steel. My daughter is in that creep's house. We have to call 911. And say what? He hissed, his face inches from mine. That we know she's there because my illegal home-brewed tracking device says so. That I've been running a private surveillance operation out of our basement. They'll arrest me, Vera. They'll confiscate all of this. He gestured wildly at the humming monitors, the wall of photos. And the guy who has her, the real threat, he'll hear the sirens and God knows what he'll do. He could panic, he could hurt her, or he'll just slip away and will never, ever prove he was the one. His logic, as twisted and self-serving as it was, hit me like a splash of ice water. He was right. In the eyes of the law, he was the criminal right now. The evidence was all here, humming and blinking in this sick little room. A 911 call would unleash a storm, but it might not be on the right person. The thought of police swarming our house, taking Felix away in cuffs while Eliza was still wherever, it was paralyzing. What do we do then? I whispered, the fight draining out of me, replaced by a cold, slithering dread. Felix, what the hell do we do? I handle it, he said, his confidence returning, his eyes gleaming with a feverish intensity. I've been watching him, Vera, I know his routines. He's old, he's slow. He takes a nap every day between 2 and 3. He drinks a glass of warm milk and watches the game show channel. I can get in, get Eliza, and be out before he even stirs. No police, no drama, she'll be safe. I stared at him, at this man I thought I knew. His plan was insane, it was the plot of a bad movie. But what was the alternative? The red dot on the screen pulsed like a tiny, frantic heart. Eliza, my Eliza, she was in that house with that man, Mr. Abernathy. The quiet, shuffling old widower who always gave her a Werther's original when he saw her. The image of his kind, crinkly-eyed smile now seemed monstrous, a predatory mask. I'm going over there, I said, my voice flat. It didn't feel like my own. No, you stay here. You watch the monitors, you be my eyes, Felix commanded. No, I repeated, stronger this time. I pulled my wrist free and this time he let me. I am not sitting in your creepy stalker lair while you play hero. I'm going over there, I'm going to knock on his door. I'll say I need to borrow a cup of sugar, a cliché. Something so normal he won't suspect a thing. I just need to see. I need to see his face, listen to the house. I need to know for myself. It was a compromise born of pure desperation. A way to do something that wasn't just sitting and waiting, or blindly trusting the man who had turned our home into a panopticon. I needed to reclaim some sliver of control, even if it was just an illusion. Felix hesitated, his jaw tight. He was wrestling with his own narrative, the one where he was the sole protector, but he saw the look in my eyes. He knew I wouldn't back down. Fine, he conceded, his voice tight with frustration. Fine, go, but be careful, Vera. Don't push it. Just ask for the sugar and get out. If anything feels wrong, even a little bit, you turn around and you walk away. You hear me? I nodded, already moving towards the stairs, my feet feeling like lead blocks. I didn't trust him. I didn't trust his story, his motives, his sanity. But the red dot was still blinking, a tiny beacon of terror in that dark, dusty attic. And right now, the only thing I trusted less than my husband was that goddamn blinking red dot. I had to see for myself. The walk to Mr. Abernathy's front door felt like a mile. The air was thick and humid, and the cheerful sound of kids playing down the street felt like it was from another planet. My own house, just a few yards away, looked alien. I kept imagining the tiny, invisible lenses watching me from the eaves, from the birdhouse, from God knows where else. Felix's eyes on my back, I rang the doorbell. The chime was a tinny, discordant melody that sounded like it was dying. I waited, my heart hammering against my ribs. I could hear faint, muffled sounds from inside, the inane chatter of a TV game show. It was exactly as Felix had said. The thought sent a fresh wave of confusion through me. Was he right? Was he actually the protector he claimed to be? After a small eternity, the door creaked open. Mr. Abernathy stood there, squinting at me over a pair of thick spectacles. He was exactly as I always remembered him, ancient, stooped, and smelling faintly of mothballs and stale coffee. He was wearing a threadbare cardigan despite the heat. Vera, he said, his voice a dry rustle. What a surprise. Hi, Mr. Abernathy, I am so sorry to bother you, I began, forcing a smile that felt like a painful grimace. I'm in the middle of baking and I've just realized I'm completely out of sugar. You'd be a total lifesaver. My voice was unnaturally high, a caricature of a friendly neighbor. Sugar. Of course, my dear, of course. He shuffled back into the gloom of his house, leaving the door ajar. Come in, don't let the flies in. I hesitated on the threshold for a second, then stepped inside. The house was dark, every curtain drawn. The air was heavy with the smell of dust and something else, something vaguely medicinal. The TV was blaring from the living room. As my eyes adjusted, I scanned everything I could. Piles of old newspapers, stacks of books teetering precariously, a film of dust coating every surface. It was the house of a man who had given up. There was no sign of a struggle, no hint of a child's presence. "It's in the kitchen just through here," he called out. I followed him, my senses on high alert. I was listening for a creak from upstairs, a cough, a whimper, anything. There was nothing but the sound of the TV and Mr. Abernathy's shuffling feet. As he rummaged through a cupboard, his back to me, I let my gaze drift upwards towards the ceiling. There in the dim hallway was a square panel with a string hanging from it, the attic door. It was closed, it looked like it hadn't been opened in years, sealed shut with a layer of grime and cobwebs. "Here we are," he said, turning around with a half-empty bag of Domino sugar. He beamed at me, a sweet, grandfatherly smile. "Will this be enough?" "That's perfect, thank you so much, you're a saint." As I took the bag, our hands brushed. His skin was like dry paper. It was at that moment he leaned in a little, his smile faltering into a look of concern. "Everything all right, dear? You look pale." "Just tired," I lied. "Long day with Eliza." His face lit up at her name. "Ah, the little one, such a bright spark." He chuckled, a dry, rattling sound. "It's funny, the house feels so much quieter now. I'd gotten used to hearing her little feet running around up there. Sounded like she was right on top of me sometimes." My blood ran cold. I froze, the bag of sugar clutched in my hand. Up there, he must have seen the look on my face because he immediately waved a dismissive hand, laughing at himself. "Oh, don't mind me. Old man's brain playing tricks. The house makes noises, you know, pipes settling, rats in the walls. I probably just miss the sound of having kids around." He tapped his temple. "Gets all jumbled up in here." I mumbled my thanks again and practically fled the house, the screen door slamming shut behind me. I stood on his porch for a moment, gasping for air. What the hell was that? A slip of the tongue from a confused old man, or was it a message? A taunt? He seemed so harmless, so frail. How could he possibly overpower a 7-year-old and lock her in his attic? It didn't make any sense. I hurried back to my own house, my mind a whirlwind of doubt and fear. The moment I was inside, I locked the door, leaning against it, my heart pounding. I didn't wait. I went straight back down into the basement, back to that cold, stinking little room. Felix was gone, probably upstairs giving me space, or maybe he was watching me on his cameras. I didn't know or care. The monitor still hummed, casting a sickly blue light on the wall of photos. The red dot was still blinking, Abernathy's attic, unmoving. My conversation with the old man replayed in my head. Sounded like she was right on top of me sometimes. It was too specific, too weird, but his frailty, his apparent confusion, it didn't add up. The two realities couldn't coexist. Either he was a cunning monster or my husband was, what? Insane, mistaken, malicious. I turned my attention away from the screens and to the desk itself. It was a cheap particle board affair, littered with empty energy drink cans and wiring diagrams. My eyes landed on a small, silver key lying next to one of the keyboards. It was for a filing cabinet, one of those standard two-drawer metal boxes tucked under the desk. I'd never seen it before. It was locked. Of course it was. My hands moved on their own. I picked up the key. It felt cold and significant. I knelt down, the key sliding into the lock with a soft click. The top drawer slid open silently. It was filled with more photos, but these were different. They weren't of me or Eliza. They were of Mr. Abernathy. Long lens shots of him getting his mail, taking out his trash, sitting in his dimly lit living room, visible through his own window. It was a meticulous, daily record of a lonely old man's life. This part at least seemed to support Felix's story. He was investigating, then I saw the notebook. A simple black moleskine tucked at the back. I pulled it out. The first half of the journal was filled with Felix's neat, blocky handwriting. It was a log. 7:15 a.m. Retrieves newspaper, weather-related small talk with mail carrier. Subject appears agitated. 2:10 p.m. TV on game show, volume excessively high. 9:45 p.m. all lights off except living room TV. Subject appears to have fallen asleep in chair again. It was creepy as hell, but it was consistent with his narrative of a concerned protector tracking a potential threat. I felt a tiny, fragile flicker of relief. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe he really was just trying to protect us in his own misguided, paranoid way. I kept flipping. About halfway through, the handwriting changed. It became a frantic, spidery scrawl, the pen strokes digging into the paper, and the subject was no longer A. The subject was me, V. Wore the blue dress today, the one with the low back. She has no idea how she looks in it. She has no idea how they look at her. Heard her on the phone with her sister, complaining. Said I was distant. If she only knew how close I am, I'm closer than her own skin. Shower time, she hums when she thinks she's alone, a little off-key. It's perfect. I slammed the book shut, a strangled gasp escaping my lips. My stomach twisted into a knot of pure ice. This wasn't protection. This was a manifesto of obsession. This was possession. He wasn't watching Abernathy to protect me. He was watching me. Abernathy was just a prop, a convenient villain in the twisted drama playing out in Felix's head. My hands were trembling uncontrollably as I forced myself to open the book again, flipping to the very last entry. It was from this morning. The ink was still fresh. It was written in thick red marker, the words pressing so hard they almost tore through the page. She must learn who her only true guardian is. A lesson is required. Abrnathys attic is the perfect classroom. Lesson 1, Fear. Little bird needs to know which cage is safe. The air rushed out of my lungs. It wasn't a kidnapping, it was a performance. A sick, elaborate piece of theater orchestrated by my husband to terrify me, to isolate me, to make me run into his arms and see him as my savior. Eliza wasn't a victim of the man next door, she was a pawn. I scrambled backwards away from the desk, my back hitting the cold concrete wall. He put her there. My husband put our daughter in that dark, dusty attic. The thought was so monstrous, so fundamentally impossible that my brain couldn't hold on to it. My body was moving before my mind caught up. The journal lay open on the floor, a testament to the madness that had been living beside me, sleeping beside me. The only thought was Eliza. Get Eliza, get out, run. I pushed myself up, using the wall for support, my legs shaking violently. I had to get out of the basement, out of the house. I could smash Abernathy's window, I could scream, I could set the damn house on fire, whatever it took. I turned towards the stairs, my eyes fixed on the sliver of light coming from the top. And then the light was gone. Felix was standing there, a silhouette against the brighter light of the kitchen. He wasn't holding the journal, he was holding my phone. He must have come down as I was typing my warning to the world, silent as a cat. His face was unreadable in the gloom, but I didn't need to see his expression. The stillness of his posture was more terrifying than any rage. You weren't supposed to find that, he said. His voice was quiet, laced with a chilling disappointment, like a teacher scolding a child who had cheated on a test. Where is she, Felix? I spat, my voice raw. Where is my daughter? She's safe, he said calmly. She's learning, just like you were supposed to. He took a step down and another. He wasn't rushing, he was methodical. In his other hand, he was holding something small and black, a small box with a single red button on it. It looked like a garage door opener or a remote for a car alarm. It looked like a detonator. You're sick, I whispered, backing away until my shoulders hit the corkboard. The faces of me and Eliza, smiling, laughing, sleeping, pressed into my back. 100 happy moments, all reframed into something grotesque. You're a monster. No, he said, his voice filled with a strange, wounded sincerity. I'm a husband, a father. I'm the only one who sees the dangers. I'm the only one willing to do what's necessary. He was at the bottom of the stairs now, just a few feet away. My eyes darted around, looking for a weapon. The wrench I'd grabbed earlier was on the other side of the room, useless. It was then that we both saw it. On the monitor displaying the neighborhood map, something changed. The red dot, the one labeled Little Bird that had been so stubbornly fixed inside Abernathy's attic, flickered once, twice, and then it vanished. My heart stopped. Felix's calm facade finally cracked. A flicker of genuine panic crossed his face. What? No, that's not. The battery is new, it shouldn't. We stared at the blank screen for a silent, agonizing second. Then the dot reappeared. It was no longer in the attic, it was outside on the street between the two houses, and it was moving fast. It was heading directly for our front door. A new sound cut through the hum of the electronics. The sound of running feet on the driveway outside, small, quick footsteps. Felix's face went through a bizarre transformation. The panic dissolved, replaced by a look of triumphant, vindicated terror. He looked from the screen to me, a wild, manic grin spreading across his face. You see, he breathed, his voice trembling with a terrifying mix of fear and excitement. He held up the small black device in his hand. He let her go, he's coming for us now. The real monster, I told you, Vera, I told you he was real. The footsteps pounded up the wooden steps of our front porch. They stopped. Felix raised the device, his thumb hovering over the red button. Now you have to believe me, he whispered, his eyes wide and shining. Now we have to stay here together, it's the only safe place. Then from upstairs came the unmistakable, deafening sound of our front door's deadbolt turning. Someone was unlocking it from the outside. The doorknob began to rotate. I was trapped in this bunker with a madman, while an unknown person, a person who somehow had a key to our house, was letting themselves in. Was it Eliza, miraculously safe? Was it the harmless old man from next door, revealed to be something else entirely? Or was it the third option, the one Felix had invented and perhaps in his madness had accidentally summoned into existence? My phone, lying on the floor where I dropped it, lit up with a notification, a reply from a stranger on the internet, but the words were a million miles away. All I could hear was the click of the latch on the front door,